Confusion of gender. Don't say, the door is open, please shut her. Say, the door is open, please shut it. In English only names of people and animals have gender, masculine or feminine. Inanimate things are neuter, and take the pronoun it the singular. Note: it's possible to use masculine or feminine pronouns when inanimate things are personified. England is proud of her navy. Using the possessive s with inanimate objects. Don't say, her room's window is open. Say, the window of her room is open. With inanimate objects we usually use the of structure. The door of the car. The leg of the table. The surface of the water. With the names of places and organizations we can use either London streets equals the streets of London. Italy's climate equals the climate of Italy. The school's main office equals the main office of the school. Note, however, we do say a day's work, a night's rest, a week's holiday, a pound's worth, etc. Especially with similar measures of time. Using the objective case after the verb to be. Don't say, it was him. Say, it was he. The pronoun coming after the verb to be must be in the nominative case, and not in the objective in written composition. However, the objective case is now usually used in conversation. It's me. Lt was him, her, them, etc. Using the objective case after the conjunction than. Don't say, my sister is taller than me. Say, my sister is taller than I am. The word than is a conjunction, and can only be followed by a pronoun in the nominative case. The verb coming after the pronoun is generally omitted. Note: use he objective case in spoken English. You're much taller than me. Using the subject pronoun after between. Don't say, it's a secret between you and I. Say, it's a secret between you and me. Between as a preposition, and all preposition. Take the objective case after them. Using an object pronoun before a gerund. Don't say, him laughing at her was what made her angry. Say, his laughing at her was what made her angry. When we use an ing verb as a noun. The preceding noun or pronoun must be possessive. Using an object pronoun in a double genitive. Don't say, a friend of him told us the news. Say, a friend of his told us the news. We use the double genitive, of plus nama plus s, his, mine etc. when we want to emphasize the person who possesses rather than the thing which he possesses. A friend of his is simply another way of saying one of his friends. Misuse of self forms. Don't say, Michael and myself are here. Say, Michael and I are here. Using his self or their selves instead of himself or themselves. Don't say, they fell down and hurt themselves. Say, they fell down and hurt themselves. Note, the relative pronouns, third person, are himself and themselves, and not his self and their selves. Misuse of noun, verb homonyms. Don't say, Becky played a good play of chess. Say, Becky played a good game of chess. Some verbs and nouns do have the same form and analogous meaning in English. The police fight a hard fight. Heather dreams long vivid dreams. If you lie, the lie will catch you out. The company danced an African dance. However, we seldom use the same word like this. Usually we try to avoid it in some way. She fought a long battle with them. If you lie you will be caught out. The company did an African dance. Using the relative pronoun which for persons. Don't say, I've a brother which is at school. Say, I've a brother who is at school. Only use which as a relative pronoun for animals or things. The right pronoun to use for people is who, whose, whom. Using what or which after everything, etc. Don't say, I heard everything which, or what, he said. Say, I heard everything that he said. Don't use the relative pronouns which and what after everything, all, something, anything, a lot, not much, little, or nothing. We can use that after these words, or it can be omitted. Who and whom. Don't say, I saw the woman whom you said lived next door. Say, I saw the woman who you said lived next door. We rarely use whom in modern English. We still use it after prepositions to, by, with, after, on etc. For example, the girl to whom you were speaking is Nigerian. We prefer to avoid this nowadays by changing the order of the sentence. The girl you were speaking to is Nigerian. You can also use that in place of who. The girl that you were speaking to is Nigerian. Using who, whom, or which after the superlative, instead of that. Don't say, it's the best which I've seen. Say, it's the best that I've seen. Use the relative that, not who, whom, or which after a superlative. It can, however, be omitted. The same as, same that. Don't say, Amelia bought the same bag that me. Say, Amelia bought the same bag as me. After the same we use as unless it's followed by a subordinate clause. In which case we use that, or omit it. Mr. Smith ordered the same meal that he ordered before. Note, sometimes we use that instead of who or which after same. He wore the same cloth that he wore on Sunday. Using who, or what, instead of which. Don't say, who of the two boys is the taller? Say, which of the two boys is the taller? Use the interrogative pronoun which, for both people and things. Asks for one out of a definite number. Note, the interrogative pronoun what doesn't imply choice. What's your telephone number? It's also used to ask for a person's profession. What's your father? He's a lawyer. Who and whom? Who. Don't say, whom do you think will be chosen? Say, who do you think will be chosen? Whom. Don't say, who do you think I saw yesterday? Say, whom do you think I saw yesterday? In sentence, A, who is the subject of will be chosen, do you think is a parenthesis in sentence. B, whom is the object of I saw, do you think is a parenthesis. Using one other instead of another. Don't say, please give me one other book. Say, please give me another book. Another is formed from an other. But instead of being written an other, it's written as one word another. Using the superlative instead of the comparative. Don't say, John is the tallest of the two boys. Say, John is the taller of the two boys. Use the comparative when two people or things are compared. Using from after the comparative instead of than. Don't say, Amy is taller from her brother. Say, Amy is taller than her brother. Adjectives, or adverbs, in the comparative are followed by than and not by from. Using the comparative instead of the superlative. Don't say, Cairo is the largest city in Africa. Say, Cairo is the largest city in Africa. Use the superlative when more than two persons or things are compared. Using the more instead of most. Don't say, the more people will agree with me. Say, most people will agree with me. Use most, not the more, when you mean the majority of. Note, use the more in sentences like, the more I complain, the more laugh. The more we write, the happier our tutor becomes. Using more good or more bad instead of better or worse. Don't say, this one looks more good than that. Say, this one looks better than that. The adjectives good and bad have irregular forms of comparison: good, better, best, and bad, worse, worst. Using home instead of at home. Don't say, in the afternoon I stay home. Say, in the afternoon I stay at home. Use the phrase at home to mean in the house. With such verbs as come or go, no preposition is necessary. He wants to go home. Using from instead of one of or among. Don't say, she is from the nicest girls I know. Say, she is one of the nicest girl I know. Avoid using from in the sense of one of or among. Using the passive infinitive, to be plus past participle, instead of the active, to plus infinitive. Don't say, English isn't easy to be learned. Say, English isn't easy to learn. The adjectives easy, difficult, hard, heavy, good, etc. are generally followed by the active infinitive. Using an intransitive verb in the passive form. Don't say, she was disappeared from the house. Say, she disappeared from the house. As a rule, don't use intransitive verbs, like appear, seem, become, consist, in the passive form. Intransitive verbs don't have an object. Mixing up one form of the verb with another. Don't say, it's better to enjoy yourself when you're young rather than wasting time worrying about the future. Say, it's better to enjoy yourself when you're young than to waste time worrying about the future. Don't mix one form of the verb with another if the first verb in a comparison is in the infinitive. The second must also be in the infinitive. Wrong sequence of moods. Don't say, if you would, do me this favor, I'll be very grateful to you. Say, if you would, do me this favor, I would, be very grateful to you. Or, if you will, I'll do me this favor, I will, be very grateful to you. The unrelated participle. Don't say, being in a hurry, the door was left open. Say, being in a hurry, he left the door open. Take care to provide the logical subject relating to the participle phrase. In the sentence given, the logical subject to being in haste is he and not the door. The question phrase isn't it? Misused. Don't say, he played well yesterday, isn't it? Say, he played well yesterday, didn't he? Use the question phrase isn't it only when the preceding statement contains the word as. It is a hot day, isn't it? Note, in this form of question, use the same tense and person as in the preceding statement and use the correct auxiliary if, however, the preceding statement is in the negative form, the question phrase omits not. We say, they are on holiday, aren't they? They aren't on holiday, are they? You speak English, don't you? You don't speak French, do you? Misuse of the gerund to express purpose. Don't say, I come here for learning English. Say, I come here to learn English. Express purpose by using the infinitive, not the gerund. Yes or no in answer to negative questions. Question, didn't you see the game? Answer, yes, that is, I saw it. No, that is, I didn't see it. In answering negative questions, say yes if the answer is an affirmation, and no if it's a negative. That is, answer without any regard to the negative form of the question. Using a double negative. Don't say, she says she's not afraid of nobody. Say, she says she's not afraid of anybody. Or, she says she's afraid of nobody. In English, two negatives are equal to an affirmative statement. You should avoid using two negative words in the same clause when not is used. None changes to any, nothing to anything. Nobody to anybody, no one to anyone, nowhere to anywhere, neither nor to either or. Using one time or two times instead of once or twice. Don't say, I was absent one time or two times. Say, I was absent once or twice. Use once and twice instead of one time and two times. Using a day, etc. instead of one day, etc. Don't say, a day they went sightseeing in Florence. Say, one day they went sightseeing in Florence. Use one, not rrn, with day, night, morning, afternoon and evening, when the one means on a certain. Using the other day instead of she next day, etc. Don't say, David slept well and was better the other day. Say, David slept well and was better the next day, or on the following day. Note: the other day is an idiom, means a few days ago. Using 1:30 instead of 1:30, etc. Don't say, lessons begin at 8:30. Say, lessons begin at 8:30. In telling time, say 1:30, 2:30, 3:30. Using as usually instead of as usual. Don't say, as usually, he left his pen at home. Say, as usual, he left his pen at home. Using according to my opinion instead of in my opinion. Don't say, according to my opinion, she's right. Say, in my opinion, she's right. Note: avoid using the phrase as I think instead of I think. Say he is lazy and I think he will fail, not as I think. Using at the end instead of in the end. Don't say, at the end they reached the city. Say, in the end they reached the city. In the end means finally or at last. At the end means at the farthest point or part. There is an index at the end of this book. There's a holiday at the end of this month. Using under the rain instead of in the rain. Don't say, they played football under the rain. Say, they played football in the rain. Note: also in the sun and in the shade. He was sitting in the sun, or in the shade. Using the reason as because instead of the reason is that. Don't say, the reason is because I believe it. Say, the reason is that I believe it. The word reason denotes cause. Therefore the reason is because is repetition. The correct idiom is the reason is that. Using a country instead of the country. Don't say, I spend my holidays in a country. Say, I spend my holidays in the country. A country is a place like France, India, or Egypt. The country is a rural area where there are no towns or cities. Using if instead of whether. Don't say, I asked Paul if he was going. Say, I asked Paul whether he was going. Where or not is implied, use whether, not if. Unlike whether, if does not expect a yes or no reply. I shall speak to him if he comes. Using any for two, instead of either. Don't say, any of these two books is good. Say, either of these two books is good. Either means one or the other of two. Any means one of three or more. Any of these books will do. Using likes me instead of I like. Don't say, the cinema likes me very much. Say, I like the cinema very much. Note: the cinema appeals to me is correct, and means, like the cinema very much. Using neither, or instead of neither, nor. Don't say, Sarah speaks neither English or French. Say, Sarah speaks neither English nor French. Remember, neither must be followed by nor and not by or. Either is followed by or. She drinks either orange juice or apple juice. Using both in a negative sentence instead of neither. Don't say, both of them didn't go to school today. Say, neither of them went to school today. Remember, change both into neither in a negative sentence and use the positive verb. Using also or to in a negative sentence instead of either. Don't say, Joe hasn't come also or to. Say, Joe hasn't come either. Remember, change also or to into either in a negative sentences. Using and in a negative sentence instead of or. Don't say, I don't like red and orange. I want the blue one. Soy. Using till instead of before or when. Don't say, I'd reached the school till the rain started. Say, I'd reached the school before the rain started. Or Ed reached the school when the rain started. Before or when introduces a clause of time, if the verb of the main clause denotes an action completed before that of the time clause.